Good afternoon, and welcome to today's caregiver webinar, Caregiving with Confidence, Taking Off the Cape and Taking Care of You. My name is Allegra Jaffe, and I am the supervisor of the Caregiver and Supportive Service Unit with the Fairfax Area Agency on Aging. A few housekeeping items before we begin today's session. Today's presentation is being recorded. A link for the recording and the slides will be sent to all the registrants within a week from today. We have enabled closed captioning. So if you need closed captioning, you can enable them on the bottom of your Zoom panel. We will have time for questions today at the end of the presentation. So at the end of the presentation, you can utilize the Q&A button and you can type in your questions to the doctor. And if you can please take a moment at the end of the webinar to fill out our survey. That survey really does help us create relevant and interesting topics to our family caregiver community. So we really appreciate your feedback. And now I would like to introduce our speaker today, Dr. Shanae Rhodes. Dr. Shanae Rhodes is a registered nurse and nurse researcher with a deep commitment to improving the health and well-being of dementia caregivers. Her interest in this area was sparked upon recognizing the widespread impact of dementia and the challenges faced by caregivers with the African American community, including her own family. Dr. Rhodes' most recent study focused on the experiences of African American women who care for family members living with dementia. Currently, she is a postdoctoral fellow at the Faith Village Research Lab at the University of Texas Health Science Center at San Antonio School of Nursing, under the mentorship of Dr. Fayron Epps. In this role, Dr. Rhodes continues to engage with the community, promoting brain health and caregiver wellness. She is dedicated to collaborating with community members on research that advances health and well-being for caregivers of all backgrounds. Thank you so much, Dr. Rhodes, for being here today and sharing your wealth and knowledge and expertise with us. Can you please join me on camera and take it away?
Good morning and good afternoon, depending on where you're at. It's such a pleasure to be here today to speak to all of you as caregivers. Thank you for what you do. I wanted to start off with that. So I'm going to dive right into our presentation for today. Go ahead and share my screen. Okay. All righty. So as Miss Allegra said today, we're going to talk about taking off the cape and taking care of you. So why do I have these two images here on this screen? So in my work, as I've been able to engage with caregivers across the nation, one common theme seems to come up, and it's the feeling that I have to do it all. I have to do it all by myself. I have to be strong. I have to carry heavy things around, not only physically, but mentally and emotionally. So today we're going to talk about taking off that cape and taking care of you. Before I dive into the most important part of what I believe this presentation to be, I wanted to talk about what does the data say? And these are things that you may or may not already be aware of. But I want you to keep in mind if you're a caregiver, a lot of this data pertains to you. Did you know that 53 million adults in America are unpaid family caregivers? According to the AARP and National Alliance for Caregiving, caregivers in this number here, this 53 million, includes those that take care of their spouses, an elderly parent or relative, as well as special needs children. Some sources expect this number to triple by 2060. So this number is expected to increase significantly. So as far as caregiver statistics, out of the 53 million, what has been found is that approximately 89% of caregivers provide care for a loved one or a relative. They spend about 37 hours on average per week in doing their caregiving duties. And this equates to about $600 billion in total unpaid care per year. The average age of caregivers are about 50 years old. About 24% are what are categorized as sandwich caregivers. That means that not only are you taking care of a loved one who's older, but also you're taking care of someone who's a dependent, perhaps a grandchild. In some cases, there are people that are taking care of perhaps two people that are elderly, or I'm sorry, that are older adults. Let me be more specific and proper in my language, older adults. Or it could be, for example, an older adult that needs assistance along with someone that has special needs. And out of this group, again, of that 53 million, 61% are actually employed. They're working at least part-time while they're taking care of their loved one or their relative. So a little bit more on caregiver stats. More than 75% of all caregivers are female. So we see that a lot of times when we come to conferences or we go to caregiver events, we see a lot of women there. However, we're starting to see a focus on male caregivers because for too long, a lot of males have actually been left out of events and services in the caregiving realm. So again, the average age of a caregiver is about 50 years old. 17% are caring for someone who's over 50 years old. And approximately 26%, so just under a third, are caring for someone with Alzheimer's disease or related dementia. And again, I brought up the sandwich caregiver because it's so prevalent nowadays, and it's important for us to remember that because, again, the work of caregiving is not a light burden, or I shouldn't even say a light burden. It's not for the faint of heart. That's the term that we'll use. And almost a quarter of caregivers report that caregiving has made their own health worse. Because oftentimes as caregivers, we take care of our loved one first. They're important to us. And then what ends up happening is that we put ourselves on the back burner. We don't take care of ourselves. So according to the Center for Disease Control, caregivers have reported elevated levels of depression and anxiety, higher use of medications to help with the depression or anxiety, worse self-reported physical health, compromised immune function, and are at an increased risk of early death. And so I'm just highlighting these two here, elevated levels of depression and anxiety. At the beginning of this presentation, I had mentioned taking off the cape and taking care of you. And I also talked about the physical toll that the work of caregiving can bring upon the body, but also the mental toll. And so I really wanted to focus on this last bullet point as well, that there is evidence that there's an increased risk of early death in caregivers. So the statistics that I just shared with you on the impact of caregiving are staggering. And it's imperative to focus on the health and well-being of the caregiver. And the impact of caregiving is not just in taking care of your loved one. There's other factors, as I've learned with talking with caregivers like yourselves. It's the issue of navigating the healthcare system that's added onto it. It's the issue of watching the progression of whatever your loved one is going through take its toll on your loved one. It's the impact of how do I find the resources that I need? How do I get the support that I need? How do I obtain respite care? So it's all these different factors. So I just wanted to pause real quick and acknowledge that it's so much more integrated than just taking care of your loved one. There's so many different factors that can weigh heavily, as you all know, because you are the experts, on you as caregivers. So I know that this is live, but I wanted to take some time to do some self-reflection. This is just a question that I wanted you to ask to yourselves as I go through the next few slides. Do any of the following caregivers' quotes resonate with you? So again, as I go through the next few slides, I want you to think, can you relate to any of these things? So as Allegra had mentioned, my study, while it focused on African American women, nevertheless, these were things that I've heard across caregivers regardless of race, ethnicity, or gender. These are direct quotes from some of the caregivers. As this participant said, sometimes we are overwhelmed with it ourselves. It's not that we are not overwhelmed. It's just that we take it all in because we think we have to do it. We think we have to. I can't let them down. The responsibility is so great till we feel like nobody else is going to do it. Can you relate to this quote? Then the depression came in was, what am I going to do when my mom's gone? Can I live without my mom? I don't know. And I'm seeing everybody around me that has gone through it. And it's like, yeah, they're still here, but she's been my best friend all my life. So what will I do? Then I really started getting somewhat depressed about it. Another person stated, the biggest challenge was not to feel guilty, when I was trying to do some self-love and self-care for myself. Can you relate to this? And yet another person said, I don't think I ever had anxiety, panic attacks. Before, during that first year, I said, yeah, I'm not going to make it. But then I had somewhere I was like, my brain is stuck. I am no good. I can't go no more. I can't even be really effective at work because it's just too much. So there is anxiety. So this is an example of a caregiver that was also working. And another person said, what made me realize I had to make some real changes was when I went to the doctor's office. My blood pressure was so high, they thought I was having a stroke or a heart attack. They kept giving me clonidine. He called an ambulance and they rushed me to the hospital. That made me realize that even though I thought I was handling the stress and up and down all night long, I thought I really wasn't. So here we see that the stress is manifesting itself physically in this particular caregiver. Can you relate to this? So, of course, I didn't want to focus on the impact, the negative impact of the work of caregiving and the things that come along with it. But again, as this presentation is entitled, Taking Off the Cape and Taking Care of You. So I circle back to these same participants, these same caregivers, these experts. And I wanted to ask them, what do you do to take care of yourself? And what advice would you give to other caregivers who are new or who maybe haven't figured out how to take care of themselves? What would you tell them? And so these next few slides are coming from experts, people who are walking in similar shoes as some of you here on the line. And so let's see what they said, what advice they have for you. Therapy. Therapy came up a lot across the participant interviews. As one of them stated, I'm seeing a therapist right now to help me figure out things in my life. And part of the major thing is the caring of my mom. So in some cultures, there's a stigma with getting therapy. That means something's wrong with me. But it's okay to get therapy. It's okay to talk it out and to get that help that you need. Just like we go to the doctor when we have a physical ailment, it's the same thing if we have a mental ailment. If we're mentally tired, if we're mentally exhausted, we've got to rejuvenate ourselves and take care of ourselves. So therapy is one of the most frequently mentioned advice from the experts. Exercise. This caregiver said, I try to exercise every day. My whole exercise regimen is completely different than what it was when it was just me. I can't leave her alone. the loved one that she was taking care of. So actually, at the beginning of COVID, I bought myself a Peloton. So I do try to get up and get on the bike or do something on the app in the morning. So as we can see here, this caregiver, she pivoted, is what she did. She took something that she did daily that she could no longer do maybe the way she did prior to having to take on the role of a caregiver. But then she found a way to adjust so that she could still engage in that and taking care of herself while also taking care of her loved one. Take time to breathe. Something so simple. Yet, as I talk to caregivers, it's also so amazing how we forget to do this simple thing that can help us. Taking time to breathe, just to breathe in and breathe out. And in some spaces that I'm invited to go to, especially caregiver support spaces, they start off with that, or they end off with that, or sometimes they even integrate it in the middle of their support group. So remind yourself to breathe. Take that breath in and take that breath out. It's similar to whenever you see people have the paper bag, when they're going through some anxiety, and the paper bag method actually works. But they take the brown paper bag and they breathe in and breathe out to calm themselves down. It's something that's very therapeutic about doing that deep breathing. As people do exercises, they do deep breathing. Deep breathing, I know, is a part of yoga. So there's evidence that shows that even just doing that simple breath in, that thoughtful breath in and breath out can help you, can help relieve some stress, even for a moment's time. So as this caregiver stated here, try to get away, even if it's 30 minutes. That 30-minute window, it really does help. Just go sit on the porch. Just go sit outside. I would just sit outside and breathe. So don't forget to breathe. Join support groups. Two caregivers here stated, join a support group. Find a circle of support. I don't think I could have made it if I wasn't in a group. I'm in 3 groups, 2 of them in Arizona and one's in Maryland. If I didn't have them to support me mentally, the 2 groups in Arizona, they have also financially with respite care. So as this second caregiver is demonstrating here, support groups not only connect you with people that understand what you're going through, that oftentimes provide a safe space where there's no judgment and you expressing how you feel, whether it's good feelings or feelings of frustrations, but you have some people that understand what you're going through and can provide that comfort and saying, I know, I've been there, but also to give you resources, a good way to connect to resources and hear of different ways to handle certain situations. And as this woman stated here, not only did it help her mentally, but she was able to also find out about resources to help her financially and get respite care. And again, that's helping to take care of you. Tap into the local resources. As one caregiver stated, another good resource too is that I've always said that I feel like every community has a department on aging, an office on aging. And I would say that was my biggest resource when I first started out, not knowing what my mother was going to qualify for, not knowing what forms I needed, what paperwork I needed. So starting that phone call, from my experience as a nurse, but also in talking with caregivers and working with caregivers, it depends on where you live, but knowing where to start is often the most difficult step. And finding out, where do I go? I've come across many caregivers that don't even know that there is an office on aging. They don't know that there's such resources out there. They don't know that the Alzheimer's Association oftentimes has a local office with representatives right in their city. So tapping into those resources, and we have the luxury in some ways of living in a society of Google.com. So sometimes it's as simple as going online to type in, how do I get help for my loved one? How do I get help I know aging is focusing on a specific population, and maybe you're a caregiver of someone who's younger, but there still are resources out there. So typing into Google and doing a search. Sometimes if I know that I grew up in the time where we had a yellow phone book. We don't see those anymore, but on your phone, a lot of people have smartphones with search modems on there, and you again can search for resources that are specific to your needs. Asking for help. This was a big one that a lot of the caregivers that I had spoken to said they struggle with. Because again, going back to that image of Superman and Superwoman, is I have to do it alone. I heard many times that people felt like they were a failure if they weren't able to accomplish things on their own. At least that was their mindset early on as a caregiver. There was distrust. Will someone be able to take care of my loved one the way that I know how to take care of them? I know my mom better than anyone. I know my dad better than anyone, and I want the best for them. Or I know my child better than anyone, and I know how to take care of them. But no man is an island. We all need help at some time. And yes, sometimes it takes finding the right help. Sometimes, it's a trial and error, where we find who is that right fit. Kind of like when we're searching for physicians for ourselves, or we're looking for a specific service. Sometimes it takes a few people before we find that right person for us, the person we feel like we can trust and that will take time to listen to our needs. And that's addressing those needs. So ask for help. And as this caregiver said, don't be afraid to ask for help. Either they're going to say yes or no. Now, I love what they say next. If you get a no, just move to the next one until you get a yeah. Sometimes getting that no can be frustrating, and it can reinforce us going back into our shells and saying, you know what? Forget it. I'll do it myself. I'm not even going to ask for help. But ask for help. And I will tell you the greatest advice that I got from someone. I do have a loved one locally who lives in the same city with me who has been diagnosed with dementia. He's in the later stages. And I wanted to know from experts like yourselves who are caregivers, what can I do? What is the best thing that I can do to offer my help? The best advice I've ever gotten was be honest. If you're really going to help them, then offer it. Do not offer if you do not intend to help and you're just saying it to be kind. And number two, be specific. If you know that there are certain things that you're not going to help them with, then don't leave it open-ended. Be specific. If you say, hey, I'm willing to go to the grocery store for you, or I'm willing to sit for you for a few hours, but be specific in what you're willing to offer, and then carry your offer through. So I will let you know that sometimes it's not that people don't want to help. We don't know how to help, or we don't know what the caregivers are comfortable with. That was my situation. But again, if you ask for help and you're rejected, don't give up, because there are people out there that will help you. And sometimes the people that you ask are friends, family, and sometimes they're not family. So be open, because you never know. I've heard many stories where even neighbors have stepped in and have been there even more so than family members. Your support circle can look many different ways, but know that you're not alone, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Find respite. So I know this is something that may be difficult for some people, because it's like, who can I get to come over here? I want respite, but who can come over here that understands what my loved one is going through, how I can, what their needs are. Again, it goes back to trust many times. But as this caregiver said, she had gotten to a point, she said, I'll pick up the phone in a minute and say, can you come over here for an hour or so? I, I got to get away. That just means that she needs time for herself. So she was willing to, again, ask for help. It kind of ties into that, but also getting time away. It's okay. Don't feel guilty. It doesn't mean you don't love your loved one. It doesn't. And I'll make a little joke here. I'm married and I love my husband. He's a wonderful man, but there's some times where I need time to myself. It's okay. because then I can rejuvenate myself and come back and be a better wife for him. So it's the same thing as a caregiver. It's okay to take that time away. It's okay to go, to the spa. It's okay to go for a walk around the block just to get yourself, in a good space and get yourself, because as the saying goes, you can't pour from an empty pitcher. At some point, you have to refill and you have to rejuvenate. So it's okay to find respite. And again, it goes back to the previous slide. If you reach out and you get rejection, keep asking. Know your capacity. We all have limitations, every single one of us. The images of the Superman and the Superwoman, I think of Superman more specifically. We knew when he put on that cape, he was ready to save the world. But then when he took that cape off, he was Clark Kent. He was just a normal man working with his glasses on. And so it's the same thing with us. We have to take time to step back out of that Superman or Superwoman role. So you want to be able to acknowledge and accept that you have a capacity. As this expert said, be cognizant of what you can handle. Don't always carry everything by yourself. So an example that I can think of is that I had the blessing of being able to work with two sisters. And one of the sisters said, I take care of all of the legal and the financial. That is what I like to do. That I'm able to handle, but I cannot be in person because mentally I can't handle it. But her sister said, I don't want anything to do with the legal because that stresses me out. I don't want anything to do with the financial, but I'm more of a hands-on person. I am someone that loves to tend to people and to serve people. So I'm the caregiver that's hands-on and in person. And so they helped each other out. And so therefore it took the load off of one person and it was shared amongst two people. And in the process, they were able to give the best care for their loved ones. So know your capacity. Validate your feelings. Validate them. Allow ourselves to feel however we feel. So we shouldn't try to make up a feeling, or we shouldn't try to avoid a feeling because we feel it's inappropriate. We're human. Joy, sadness, anger, frustration, these are all part of our makeup, our genetic makeup. This is just who we are. It's innate. It's how we were born. Even babies get angry. Babies get frustrated. Babies have joy. It's not something that we have to be taught. It's something that's in us. So validate your feelings. It's okay. It's okay if you're having a day where you're happy. It's okay if you're having a day where you're like, today was a hard day. It's a hard day. I was angry today. I was frustrated today. Now, I will say, if it gets to a point where you're like, I'm so frustrated that I can't control my emotions and I feel like I'm going to take it out on someone, then you do want to get help. You want to go back. You want to get that help. You do want to get that help, but don't ignore your emotions. Don't bottle them up. It's okay. And then celebrate those moments where you have the good days. Celebrate them and hold on to them so that they can encourage you during the bad days. And I know it's not up here in this quote, but another caregiver, she had told me, she said, I am learning how to mourn the loss of my mother. Her mother was progressing through stages of dementia. She said, I'm learning to mourn and be sad as I'm watching the woman that I knew fade away. But I'm learning to celebrate who she's becoming. And my gosh, even just remembering her saying that gives me chills because it shows the roller coasters of emotion captured in a single sentence in a snapshot that caregivers often go through. And not just with dementia, but in general, that can go through. But validate your feelings. And it goes back to the support groups. Having those support circles and that community where you can go to and say, hey, where they can say, yes, I understand, and it's okay. So let's talk about it. let's talk about some ways, that we can let you know and reassure you that you're human. It's okay. And it doesn't mean you're a bad person. So validate your feelings. Encourage yourself. I am not a caregiver in the capacity that many of you are. I'm a professional caregiver as a nurse. But I will let you know that when I say thank you for what you do, I'm not just saying it. I mean it. First of all, being a caregiver is a choice. You may not feel like it is. You may feel like, no, this is what I have to do. Like, what are you talking about? Especially if you're taking care of a dependent child. You may feel like that, but please understand, it still is a choice. It, it it's difficult to say, but there are some people that do step away from caregiving. I've seen it, even with dependent children with special needs. I've seen it in my career. So I wanted to say thank you because you made the choice to take on the caregiving that's required for your loved one because you love your loved one. And I want to say thank you. But also, I want to remind you to encourage yourself. Encourage yourself, even if you have to look in the mirror and tell yourself, thank you. Good job. Well done. You go. Encourage yourself. And as this first caregiver said, even the strongest of the strong are allowed to be weak at times. And that's okay. I think that's something I tell myself every day. Even the strongest of the strong are allowed to be weak at times. And then the second caregiver said, and I talk to myself a lot. I like to thank myself. I think I'm doing a great job. So give yourself a pat on the back. And it's not an arrogant thing, but you're doing work, oftentimes unpaid. I know some of the states do have a paid system, which I think is wonderful, but a lot of states do not have that option. So either way, thank you for what you do and give yourself a pat on the back. Give yourself grace. Give yourself grace. Yeah, because this thing is hard. Maybe people feel like we shouldn't complain. People always say to me, "Oh, girl, that's a blessing." I understand that, but that don't mean it's still not hard. So give ourselves grace. You want to give yourselves grace. Let yourself know, yes, it is hard, but give yourselves grace. So in conclusion, and I know we still have some time left, but I do have some additional slides I like to share, is don't forget who you are as a person. Don't forget who you are as a person. Caregiving is a very important hat that you wear. It is. But there's so much more to you than just that. There's so much more. Some of you are artists. Some of you are people that love nature. Some of you are educators. Some of you are singers. Some of you, whoever you are, there's so many different aspects that make you you. So don't forget who you are in this. And this is really important, not only in your caregiving journey, but also when your caregiving journey ends, whatever ending may be. Ending could be that your person you're caregiving for gets better and they don't need you at the same level they needed you before. And sometimes from what I've learned from you all is that you get so enthralled with your role as a caregiver that when that role is no longer in existence, you don't know who you are anymore. It's almost like you're relearning you. So don't lose yourself in it. This is a part of you. You are a caregiver, but there's other parts of you as well. And I just want to drive home. Don't forget who you are as a person. You are unique. There's no one else like you in this whole world. No one. That's why your fingerprint is unique to you. No one else has that fingerprint. So really love on yourself too. That's okay. There's nothing selfish with loving on yourself. Because guess what? If you do these things that these experts, the caregivers shared, that they so graciously shared for me to share back with you all, then what's going to happen is going to help you in your caregiving journey to be the best you can be, not only for you, but for your loved one too. So again, I have another self-reflection, and I want you to think about what do you do or what can you do for self-care to protect your mental health? Is there something on here that maybe you are doing that is helping? Are there things on here where you're struggling with as far as the advice from the other caregivers? And if you are struggling with it, what can you do to break away from that struggle and at least start? And so it's kind of funny because I recently just started working out and it's hard. I'm older. I'm not young and full of energy like I used to be in my 20s. And, but I made a choice. I made a choice. I have to do this because I was diagnosed with prediabetes. And diabetes is very prevalent in my family. My grandmother passed away from it. And I laugh about it now, but I started this little workout, started off at the beginner's level, and I cried halfway through. I cried like a baby because in my mind for a second, I lost hope and I said, there's no way. I don't have the energy. This is not fun anymore. It's taken me a lot longer. I've tried and I've stopped. I've tried and I've stopped. And then all of a sudden, I heard just a small little voice say, it's okay, but you're taking the first step. Don't give up. Don't give up. And so I know that's different. It's not a caregiving story, but I do want to share with you, don't give up. Take that first step in taking care of yourself. Even if it's just stepping out on the porch, maybe not 30 minutes, but start off with 5, 10 minutes. Walk around the house, do some exercises. Play with Legos, with your loved one. Do something fun, do artwork. Sometimes that helps to take off stress. It's still a part of self-care, and you're doing it together. So I thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope that's something that was shared with you that I've learned. I'm always learning as a nurse from you guys as caregivers, and I'm appreciative of that because it helps me to become a better nurse as I'm taking care of loved ones who are caregivers, as well as those that are receiving the care. It helps me to become a better woman in general, and it helps me to become a better daughter. We never know. Oftentimes, I shouldn't say we never know, but many times I've learned from caregivers, they didn't know that they were going to be in this role. They didn't know. So I don't take it lightly whenever I'm engaging with you all and learning from you all. This is my email address. Please feel free to take a picture with your smartphone or if you want to write it down. If you have any questions, if you would like just to say hello, please feel free to do so. And so next, before we end, I do want to share some resources. These are national resources in case anyone on here is not aware of them. Many of you may already be aware of them. But there is the Area Agency on Aging. They have a national hotline, 1-800-AGE-LINE. Very simple. I love their number, 1-800-AGE-LINE. These are just a few of the services that they provide, but you can learn more um, about what all they do by contacting them directly. But they do offer medication management, home delivered meals, caregiver support, respite care, and even transportation services. The Elder Care Locator, you'll see the website here. It's eldercare.acl.gov. And that their services that they offer, I'm sorry, I want to move this box down. Y'all may not be able to see it, but I do. Okay. They offer adult daycare, caregiver programs, case management, as well as other services. The AARP, and of course, here's their website. They offer financial, legal, medical, and other information, as well as local resources. And as I had mentioned earlier, the Alzheimer's Association. They offer help and support, research opportunities, and local resources. And also Fairfax. Fairfax, who's hosting this today, offers a plethora of resources. So you can always contact them, and they will be able to assist you as well. Okay, and so here are some additional resources. So these aren't national, However, for the first one is offered in various states across the nation. They're called Chefs for Seniors. And what they offer is in-home chef services for you and your loved ones for the same price as meal delivery. So I have had the pleasure of meeting them at some of the conferences I've gone to, and some of them say that they work off of a sliding scale. So they do base it off of income. So if this is a service that you are looking for because you're like, hey, I need help, Chefs for Seniors is a good service. Your GPS doc, it is available. So I guess it's not necessarily national, but it is available to anyone across the U.S. They provide a variety of customized health advocacy services to help individuals and their family caregivers navigate the healthcare system. And then the National Council of Dementia Minds. So I love to put this one on here because I find while there are a lot of support groups for caregivers, there's for us specifically those that are taking care of loved ones with dementia, there aren't a whole lot of support groups or services for people who are actually living with dementia. So the National Council of Dementia Minds have different groups of people that are living with dementia. And again, I know this is specific to dementia, but nevertheless, they have these groups that are doing wonderful things, wonderful things. And so I did list just a couple of them, or a few of them. There's three, I'm sorry. However, there are other groups out there. I believe there's one for veterans. They have a Brotherhood of Dementia Minds for men living with dementia. So I did want to share that as a resource as well. And then I always love to share books by other caregivers. So there is from the previous slide, your GPS doc. On that website, there is a free book. You do not have to pay a dime. You go to this website here, the bit.ly GPS Burnout, to request your free copy, and it's called Preventing Caregiver Burnout. And it was written by a doctor, a doctor. And then the second book, this is again for dementia, focused on that. It's the 36-Hour Day, a family guide to caring for people who have Alzheimer's, dementia, and other dementias. I have heard about this book at every single workshop, conference that I've gone to that focuses on dementia. So it must be a really good book, and I wanted to highlight that. And last but not least, I do want to share some research opportunities. So, as Allegra said, I am a nurse, but I'm also a nurse researcher. These are not my studies. However, these are studies in which I know the researchers very well. I do not share just any study. I'm very protective over you all as caregivers. And so there's a study going from left to right with Dr. Bonds Johnson, looking at dyads. So she's looking at daughters who are caregiving for a loved one who has dementia. And then over here on the right, we have our learning skills together. Dr. Kylie Meyer out of Case Western in Ohio is doing this study. And this is an online program that's equipping caregivers with resources. And this, unlike the first study, hers is open to everyone. It doesn't matter which your gender or your race is, and it is focused on those that are taking care of parents or spouses living with dementia. And I'm sorry, all these are dementia studies. That's the space that I'm working in right now. And then the middle study is by Dr. Fayron Epps, who is my mentor, and she has an online program for, again, those that are taking care of loved ones with dementia, called Caregiving While Black. So hers is focused on African Americans. But anyway, these are just a few. If you are interested in research studies that pertain to you, feel free to email me. In the research world, it's big, but it's small. So I'd be more than happy to see if I can connect you to something where you may be a better fit for. And that is the end of my presentation. I want to thank you all for listening, and I'm going to turn it back over to Allegra.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rhodes. What a great presentation. Thank you. Thank you. I want to invite our audience. You can now submit your questions into the Q&A box for Dr. Rhodes, and I will share those with her. Dr. Rhodes, we had a few questions that got emailed in prior, so I'm going to ask you some of those as well. Someone asked, what is your advice about how to take care of someone that you don't like or enjoy being around. So when you're in a situation with the relationship is difficult, how do you, what advice could you give to that person?
Thank you so much. Such an important question. And thank you for asking that question. I know that's probably a difficult question to even share in this space. So instantly when you asked that question, I thought about an expert. And when I say expert, I'm speaking of you all as caregivers. She had to take care of her mother who had abused her when she was younger. And she said that there were days where she would be so angry because she said, how is it that I have to take care of the same person that abused me? And she said for her, how she handled it was reminding herself that she almost separated herself. This is her advice to me. She said, when I took care of her, I was her caregiver. I had to actually separate that I was her daughter and get out of my mind for that moment, what happened to me in the past. I want to add on to that. This is where therapy is so important, so important. Because again, you're validating your feelings. We don't want you to fake it. We don't want you to bottle it up or hide it and say, I'm not angry. I love help, taking care of this person. No, if you don't, if it's difficult, if you're like, I can't stand them, you're being honest. But I really, 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 really advise you get therapy and find a support group because you will hear unique ways of how people handle situations and you'll find out you're not alone. You're not alone. I had another young lady who shared with me that her mother had lived a rough lifestyle when she was growing up. And she said that when her mother got older, she had to take care of her because of the consequences of how she had lived her life. And she dealt with the same thing. She said, I was angry because I'm like, that's not fair. It's not fair that you chose to live this life. And now you're messing up my life for me to take care of you. And so I asked her that question, like, well, how do you day by day take care of her? And how do you deal with that anger and that emotion? And so for her, it was prayer. She said, I pray about it and I'm getting through it, and also therapy. She said therapy as well. So that would be my advice is those two things, I don't know your beliefs, but those two things for sure, therapy and also support groups. I cannot drive that home anymore than I have in the presentation. And then don't forget, if you go to a therapist and you're just like, I'm not getting the results, it's okay. Go find another one and keep going until you find that good fit. And I will, as a nurse, I tell my patients in general, if you have a bad experience with a doctor or a nurse, we're here to serve you. Go find someone that's willing that's able to meet your needs. But that would be my advice. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Another question from an attendee is, what mental health resources and support systems are available for caregivers? How can they be accessed effectively?
Great question. Great question. So, mental health, oftentimes we separate mental health from the daily struggles from like mental health issues that are more diagnosed, like psychiatric or whatever. And I think that's where the stigma comes in seeking mental health help. Because we think, oh, okay, if I go get help for mental health, they're going to think I have it. And there's nothing wrong with people that have diagnosed problems. So let me make that clear. But mental health means well-being, no matter who you are and what the situation is. So one group, NAMI is a great group for mental health resources, regardless who you are. And there are aspects within NAMI, and I always say NAMI, so I'm going to look it up because the National Alliance on Mental Health. I'm so used to saying the acronym, but NAMI, if you look up the National Alliance on Mental Health, they have programs all across the nation, and they have some that are specifically designed for caregivers. So that is one resource that I would recommend for you to tap into, but also tap into your local Alzheimer's Association because sometimes they have specific resources, workshops that focus on mental health of the caregiver. And then lastly, I know I'm going to say it again, but support groups. You'd be surprised at how many times I hear caregivers say, mentally, I'm doing better because I'm in this support group. I've seen, especially new caregivers who are feeling like they're drowning, sobbing in support groups, but seeing the support group members come around them, even virtually, and giving them that help and that lift up mentally that they need. As far as approaching, I would say be transparent. Be transparent when you're approaching these services. Let them know. Validate your feelings. And again, don't be afraid. If it's not a good fit, move on. Find who is going to be a good fit. And then lastly, I know there's, I think, another question. Um, when you're in these support groups, ask them. Many times they have a therapist and they'll tell you this person's great. And sometimes they'll have therapists that have been caregivers or are caregivers themselves. You never know. So that's how that's my advice. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Another question from an audience member is, in what ways can caregivers recognize signs of mental health deterioration in the person they are caring for? And how can they
Mm.
address these issues early on?
Okay. And so just so I'm clear, this was identifying mental health decline symptoms in the care recipient.
Yes.
So thank you for that question. This is a more complex question because depending on who you're caregiving for example, I work in the area of dementia, and sometimes dementia can mimic depression and depression can mimic dementia. But what I would say is this. Many times no one knows your loved one better than you. One thing I tell my patients when they come in and they bring their loved one to me, they're like, "Oh, you're the nurse and we know you know." And I said, "Actually, I don't." I don't, I do know some things, but you know your loved one much better than I know them. You know the little things that could be off that maybe I haven't picked up on. So if you notice something that you believe is off, or you believe this is not their norm, and it doesn't have to be dementia, it could be depression, it could be something else. Um, there's some medical conditions that mimic depression. Sometimes people with urinary tract infections, they become septic, and the next thing you know, they begin like shutting down, and you might think, oh, they're depressed. So as soon as you see a sign, then go seek help. And I always believe it's better to seek help and it's nothing than to not seek help and then you find out, oh my gosh, it was something before it was too late. So seek that help. And I know then the other layer of that is, how do I get my loved one to go get the help? And so, talking to them, letting them know I love you, I want to help you, I'm concerned. Um, Again, sometimes you have to reach out to other people to ask for, how can I get my loved one to get the help that they need? Um, when you talk to other people who are in a similar situation, oftentimes they have very unique ways, very unique ways. I will say, don't, excuse me, I don't find lying to them helps. I'll be honest. But there are some unique ways. Sometimes it's getting that person, they're going to move on. It might be a grandchild that they adore and that they'll say yes to everything. You don't want to put the weight on the child, but if they're older and they understand, getting them involved and helping to get the loved one um, to get some help. But I would say as soon as you see those signs, don't doubt yourself. Don't doubt yourself.
Thank you. Thank you. Another question is, what should I do if my loved one won't let anyone come to the house to help with respite care? I'm burnt out, but my loved one won't let neighbors or families or any other agencies come to the house. What can I do?
Yes. So this is, again, another complex one because I need to get this help, but how do I protect the dignity and the wishes of my loved one? I don't know what the situation is. I don't know why your loved one doesn't want anyone there, but I will say I've heard many times it's an embarrassment sometimes. They don't want people to see them in that situation. But what happens is that it's a cycle that begins because whatever the condition is, paired with social isolation, can lead to depression easily. and it worsens in condition, which falls further into social isolation, depression. So there's a way we have to break it. So one of the things that I heard that could work is that sometimes it's you take it in small strides. So it may be, hey, and I'm just making up a scenario. Hey, mom, I know you don't want company over here today, but I'm gonna have a friend come over. I'm gonna have a friend come over to visit with me. We're gonna have tea. We're gonna sit in the kitchen, and have that person come over. And it may just be for 10 minutes, 20 minutes. And then eventually trying to integrate, even if they're just checking in, hey, Miss Such and Such, I just wanted to say hi. They don't have to sit there, but getting your loved one comfortable that someone's coming in. It may take time. It may take time. The other thing is maybe integrating something that they love, because remember, no matter what their disease or diagnosis is, just like I said, remember who you are as a person, they are still a person. They have something, even though they may be in a period where they're sad or they're down or they're embarrassed, but there's something in their life that they once enjoyed, whether it's gardening, whether it's drawing, whether it's singing. So try to find those things that they liked. And even though they might push it away, but don't give up. Even if you're like, okay, I'm going to draw by myself right now, but keep working at it. And if you've never heard of this lady, and I think even though she focuses on dementia, again, I'm sorry because that's the space I'm in, but I think it's applicable for anyone. The Lego lady, she's known as the Lego lady. Her name is Loretta Veney, Veney. And her story, very short and sweet, because I see we're coming to the end, is that she was a caregiver of her mother who was living with dementia. Her mother would get so anxious when she had to take her to the doctor's office. And Loretta remembered excuse me, when she was a child, whenever her and her sister got antsy, her mom would give them Legos. So she figured, let me try to give some Legos to my mom and see, let me make her a little fidget spinner. And it worked. And so now she's internationally known for Legos. It was just something she thought about. She tried it and it worked. So don't be afraid to think outside of the box. Think outside of the box. And then again, I promise you would think someone should pay me for saying support groups. um, Tap into those support groups. You will hear so many unique ways that people have tried, have done things to allow their loved ones to let someone come to the house. But anyway, I thank you all again so much, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you again, Dr. Rhodes. I so appreciate your time and your expertise. I want to thank the audience. Thank you so much for being with us here for this past hour. We know your time is really valuable, so we so appreciate it. As I shared earlier, this was recorded, and we'll send you the recording and the slides within a week. I wanted to invite everybody to our next caregiver webinar, which will be on Wednesday, April 16th, from 12 to 1 p.m. again. And that will be on miscommunication or miscommunication, the challenges of hearing loss for caregivers. Just another reminder as well, if you could please fill out the survey, it really does help us create topics that you're interested in, and that's here for our family caregiver community. And that is it, folks. So I thank you all again. I hope everybody has a great rest of the day. Thank you again, Dr. Rhodes. Thank you. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.